Welcome to HomeWord. I'm Jim Burns. Hey, guess what this is? This is Teacher Appreciation Week at HomeWord. Okay, we've never done that before, but we are today. And most likely you interact with teachers on a regular basis, or you are a teacher. And I want to give you a huge podcast hug if you are a teacher. And I want to say thank you for all you do and for who you are. As my guests today on the HomeWord podcast say to teachers, you have an unparalleled opportunity to positively, let me say it again. You have an unparalleled opportunity to positively impact the world. I love that phrase. Teachers transform people. What's wrong with me? We'll start again. Teachers transform lives like few people, and I am 100% all in. As some of you know, my wife, Kathy, we've been married 51 years, was a teacher. My daughter, Christy, is a middle school teacher in the inner city and is actually one of my heroes. So we got it in our family as well. And today on the HomeWord podcast, we have internationally known psychologist, radio and television personality, educator, speaker, humorist, Dr. Kevin Leman. We are so honored to have him. You know, some of his best-selling books, they're going to be familiar to many of the people who are listening or watching on our YouTube channel. The Birth Order book, check, I read it, influenced my life big time. Have a New Kid by Friday, read it, check, changed my life. Making Children Mind Without Losing Yours, which is one of my favorite books. I have trouble saying it, but I did read it, and it's great. And I've actually read this twice. Sheet Music. I mean, the list could go on and on. Kevin is the founder of the Leman Academy of Excellence. He's a guest on, small little programs like Good Morning America, Oprah, Fox and Friends, CNN, Today Show, and now he has finally made it to the big time. HomeWord with Jim Burns. We also have Kristin Leman O'Reilly with us. Kristin is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at the award-winning Leman Academy of Excellence schools. Kristin has a master's degree in teaching. She and her husband, Dennis, and their two children live in Arizona. And together they've written a great book. I read it this week and I loved it. It's called Be a Great Teacher by Friday. Kristin, Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, we're glad to be here. Thanks, Jim.
Well, great to be with you. And Kristin, especially great to be with you because I've not met you yet, but I sort of know your dad. And again, like I said, I read the book. I love it. And I actually think there's a lot of teachers who should, pick this book up. But I think there's a lot of us who should buy this book and then hand it to teachers. Kristin, I got to ask you a question. I mean, your dad is, let's face it, he's kind of a big deal in the circles, at least that I run in. So I'm looking for any dirt you can give me on him. I mean, does he burp at the table? I mean, what was it like growing up as Kevin Leman's daughter?
That's funny because I'm asked that question a lot, especially when I was growing up. I would be asked that question. And I think what people fail to realize is he's my dad. Yep. And at home, he's not Dr. Kevin Leman.
No.
He's just...
He doesn't make you call he didn't make you call him doctor.
No. And so, it was a wonderful childhood. And of course, there were some perks that came along. He'd often take one of us on a trip with him, and that was always special. But other than that, he's always been dad to myself and my 4 siblings.
I love that. And I see that in him. What you see is what you get. He's the real deal wherever he is, I'm sure. And anyway, great. It's an honor to have him sitting next to you because I think he really has changed the world. I live in the family ministry world, and he and his books and his talks and whatnot have just have changed us in a beautiful, beautiful way. Kevin, you have a doctorate, so you're Dr. Kevin. But the fact is that you said in this book you hated school.
Yeah, I did. I hated school, and
There's a story behind that. What's that story?
Well, let me add a little birth order to it. I have a sister who was perfect. She got straight A's. The kind of person would put newspaper under the cuckoo clock just as a prevention. I had a brother who was the quarterback on the football team and best looking in his class, and again, a straight A student. And then there was me. And so I've shrunk myself years ago, Jim. And I figured out, you know what? I looked up and saw those 2 bluebirds doing so well. And I decided, you know what? Little Cubby Leman, and that was my nickname as a kid. I was Cubby. I would go in a little different direction. So school, one of my vivid early childhood memories, Jim, is being in one of those little reading groups where we sat in those tiny little chairs in circles. And I was 6 years old. And And back in those days, things were different. We had the red birds, the blue birds, the yellow birds.
Sure.
They didn't care about your feelings. I was a member of the crows. And one of my vivid memories is watching this little girl named Barbara, who was in my group. And remember those 3-inch jars of white paste were part and parcel to elementary education. I remember her taking her index finger and taking a good jaw of it and just eating the paste. And I remember as
Oh
a
my
6 year
gosh.
old thinking, I know I don't belong in this group. But God bless the school system. That's what I was. So I became the attention getter, the class clown. Teachers
Yeah.
didn't like me. But I have to share this with you because I'm going to fast forward from first grade to age 17, April of my senior year in New York State. You graduated in late June.
Mhm.
And my math teacher, who was somewhere between estrogen and death, I mean, the woman was old. In retrospect, this is sort of funny. She was about 40.
Yeah.
Thought she was near
Sure.
death. But she
Right.
pulled me aside one day and she said, Kevin, very sternly, she said, do you think you could ever use those skills you have for something positive in life? And it bothered me that this old biddy could see through my 17-year-old
Right.
brain. And she actually tutored me in her home 4 days a week throughout the rest of my senior year, or I wouldn't have graduated. I ended up graduating
Yeah.
fourth in about of my class. I made it. Couldn't get in college, got admitted on probation,
Right.
got thrown out a year later, became a janitor in Tucson, Arizona, where I met my wife in the men's room. So again, it sounds like I made it up, but it's all the gospel truth. And the miraculous thing was 10 years after getting thrown out of college, I was a dean of students at the University of Arizona.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. I'm still focused on the fact that you met your wife in a men's room.
Yeah, I was swabbing down I had seen her that day in the hospital. I thought, whoa, where'd she
Yeah.
come from? And
Yeah.
a very tall, attractive, wonderful lady. And I was swabbing down the men's room and she walks in. She was a nurse's aide and she was helping some little old guy go potty with his
Yeah.
little walker. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's her say something stupid. And as you know, Jim, I was always good at saying stupid things. I looked at her, I said, pardon me, would you like to go to the World's Fair with me? It's the first thing I said to her. Well, the World's Fair was in New York. This is Tucson, Arizona. I'm making $195 a month. And she was always the smarter one of the two of us. She said, well, I don't know. I said, how about lunch then? And so we went to a McDonald's, split a 20-cent cheeseburger and a 10-cent Coke. And I fell in love with a woman. And she was the one that ultimately led me to a real understanding of who Jesus Christ was in my life. And my life
Wow.
did a
Wow.
180. So there's two women,
Wow.
Miss Wilson, this wonderful teacher, and my bride, who were part of turning my life
Amazing.
in a different direction.
Amazing. Amazing. And then you have a daughter who has given her life to teaching, which is pretty incredible. In your book,
She's wonderful.
you both say this: teaching isn't a job. If that's what it is to you, you won't stay in the field very long. What did you mean by that, Kristin? What did that mean?
Sure. Sometimes people from the outside, if you hover 30,000 feet above schools, you might look at it as a great job because you get the holidays off and you get
Yeah.
summers off and you're with kids all day and that sounds fun. But the reality is teaching is one of the hardest professions that I can think of because you're working with kids, whether they're preschool aged or fifth graders or high schoolers. Teaching is hard. And so it has to be what you want to do and what you've devoted your life to doing. And so
Right.
we talk in the book about how it shouldn't be a job, but a joy. And
Yeah.
and those are the teachers that make an impact on people's lives. If you're just there and you're punching your time card, I would question the leverage that you're really making and impacting people's lives. And those teachers that are difference makers invest themselves in
Yeah.
others, and that's the beauty of teaching.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing to even think about with teaching. It's also important for all of us who interact with teachers because our kids are in the schools and whatnot. I mentioned that my wife, Kathy, was a teacher for so many years. She worked at the last 11 years in a school with kids who learn differently, they call it. The kids were on the spectrum and Kathy mentored them and she was so great with them. And we've kind of watched this school. It's a private school and we continued to donate to it and be a part of it and whatnot. And we've seen these kids just thrive. And I think it was because teachers cared big time. And then my daughter, Christy, works in the inner city. 99.9% of the community speaks Spanish. And that's another special gift that she has to do it. She's, like I think I said, she's one of my heroes. Not an easy job, but they've changed kids' lives. I mean, I've seen that. You see that in the world that you're living in. And so what I'm hoping happens today is actually, because it's Teacher Appreciation Week at HomeWord, that our listeners will actually consider getting your book and passing it on to somebody else, to a teacher, and maybe put a gift card in there. But a thank you note, maybe just as important as the book or the gift card, slip that thank you note in there. The question I have for you is, parents know that teachers are impacting their kids' lives, but how, besides that, do they support a teacher? How do you, during the year, what can parents do to support a teacher?
Yeah. And sometimes it's what they don't do. Teachers don't need criticism for no reason, and they don't need, nasty remarks back on homework. But encouragement, we call it vitamin E in our book, which is a Dr. Lemanism.
Exactly.
Encouragement goes a long way, and just thoughtfulness. And, your wife can probably attest to this too with her years of education. Years ago, when I first started teaching, parents were on the teacher side. They didn't question really what the teacher said happened in school, but that paradigm has completely shifted. And whatever the child goes home with, that story is the gospel truth, and the teacher's on the hot seat, as opposed to the teacher and the parent really partnering together for the betterment of the child. That's where success and changes really happen. So if you're a parent and you have a teacher that you care about, a handwritten note, their favorite drink, a little goodie, honestly, just an encouraging word as they start their day. It doesn't take a lot. We just want to be recognized and, not thanked, but just recognized for the hard work that we do.
Yeah. No, and you said the word partnering, and I wrote a book years ago for the church called Partnering with Parents in the Church. And we need to partner with teachers. And it's exactly what you said. It's all stuff we can do. And we don't partner with them when we criticize them for whatever's going on, or we blame the teacher because our kid isn't doing something right or wrong. We need to be partners. I love what you're saying. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, by the way, before we take that break, at the podcast notes, you can see all things about this great book called Be a Great Teacher by Friday. As I said, I read it this week and I loved it. And it's not a bad idea for you to buy that book, pass it on to the teacher with that affirming note. And when we come back, we're going to ask, and I want to hear what these guys say about the most important things teachers need to know. And by the way, this book is for teachers. It is such a good book for teachers. Anybody who's a first-time teacher, this is the book. Hand this to them. It'll help you like crazy. We'll be right back. Don't go away. More to come. Hi, Jim Burns here. I am so excited about what's going on at HomeWord. Some of you are just learning that things are changing around here, and one of the most exciting things changing is our new president, Marcus. And Marcus, tell us what's going on with HomeWord.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. So excited to share with you, give you a glimpse of what God is doing in this new season at HomeWord. And it's a blend. It's a blend of new and tried and true. And our mission right now is, how do we take these 4 decades, these 40 years of ministry, of resources, of principles that God has been changing lives throughout the nation and beyond, and expand that, but also tether it to a younger generation. And the way we're going to do that is through a blend of tried and true resources and principles and events, as well as new initiatives. And I'll start off with the new. On the new side, we have a new website. We are rebranding. We've got new staff. We've got new faces and new voices to our growing social media presence, and that is wonderful. But also on the tried and true side, we've got a Refreshing Your Marriage retreat that has been an amazing, amazing, impactful event. We've got our conferences like Trainer for Trainers, and our resources like our books that we're going to continue to write and expand and change lives. Speaking of which, Jim, share with us the latest update of what's going on in the book world here at
You
HomeWord.
got it. And I'm excited about your leadership, and I'm excited about where we're going at HomeWord. It's going to be pretty incredible. We've got a book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. We have other books, of course, but that's still on the bestseller list after 5 years. Even this month, it's on the bestseller list. And now there's a new one that's going to be coming out called When Your Adult Child Strays, Trading Heartache for Hope. And I'm doing this book right now, and there's going to be a course with it. And we have other books on sexuality and things like that are really, really making a difference all around this world.
So with all the things going on right now at HomeWord, here's what you can do. God is putting in our heart this desire and this plan to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference that I recently attended, and it helped my wife and I have a breakthrough that God was working in our hearts for a while. But beyond that, I saw other couples experiencing the same thing. So we are going to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference, take it to other cities, and we want to be able to not only help make sure that happens, but also those that can't afford it, that need to be resourced and some scholarships. So we want to make sure nobody misses out on a chance to get their marriage refreshed and to draw closer to the Lord. So I'm asking you to make a special gift above and beyond to support that. Thank you so much, HomeWord.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. Great conversation today with the beautiful, beautiful people. The Kevin Leman, who has just been in the world of family work for years and years, and his wonderful daughter, Kristin, who is an educator. We're talking about a great book called Be a Great Teacher by Friday. And, I want to get back to this question that I said right before the break. You talk about some of the most important things that teachers need to know. Let us know what you're talking about on that.
Well, number one, it's all about relationships. In fact, I've got a question for you because you've read the book. That tells me how thorough you are. My hat's off to you on that. But, I did an interview just yesterday, and I mentioned the fact, the title of this book could be How to Be Successful in Life.
Yes.
Because it's really all about relationships. And where Chrissy was talking about, things that the home can do for the teacher. When I get a chance to talk to teachers, I always say, hey, listen, in the first 2 weeks of life, you make contact with the home. The more personal it can be, the better.
Right.
A phone call. And even if it just took 60 seconds to say, I just want you to know, little Michael seems to love school. Kids like him. He has a lot of friends already. He's doing well in school. If something comes up, here's how you contact me. When that person clicks off the phone, what do they think? They say, boy, that teacher really cares. And one of the principles we try to preach in this book is, you know what? They don't care what you know until they know you care. And that's sort of basic in any walk of life, Jim.
It really is. When I read the book, you're right, because it's for teachers and the advice is great for teachers. And there's things on education. There's the principles that principle right there is a principle that we need in relationships everywhere we go and whatever we do.
Right.
My daughter, Christy, who's a teacher, she probably does that. She hasn't read the book yet, of course, but she's doing a lot of that. And she's the most beloved teacher at the school probably because she reaches out to the parents. A lot of her parents don't speak any English whatsoever, so they speak Spanish. Christy can speak Spanish to them. And these people they feel so appreciated because Christy is saying, if there's anything I can do, here's my cell phone number. I don't know that every teacher has to do what Christy does because she's kind of like in it with them. But that really is, that's a fact. Kristin, anything else that they can do that can?
I think when a teacher recognizes the uniqueness of each child. And so we have to recognize today there's classrooms that have 30 plus kids or even in the 20s. And I'm sure that parents feel, how is my kid going to be seen? And how are they going to be treated? And so when we can really pay attention to how kids learn and treat them differently and what they like and dislike. And, when you have a parent-teacher conference and you can sit across the table and have an easy conversation because you've gotten to know the home, you've partnered with them already, you've communicated with them, and then you can share uniquenesses that the parents across the table can go, you've seen that, we see that at home. You've noticed that about him? Thank you for noticing that about my son because you're right. He loves whatever that is. So really investing the time to get to know them as people.
Yeah. Let me add one thing there. If you have just a fundamental understanding of birth order as a teacher and you're at parent-teacher conference time, again, the information that you know about the fact that in most families, the first two kids in the family are, guess what? Absolutely opposites. If you know just something about personality, you're going to look like a genius teacher as you're talking to that parent. And they're going to
Yeah.
think, wow, that teacher really understands behavior in kids. And we are so fortunate to have a teacher like the one we have for our little Buford.
Yeah. When you talk about birth order, and again, I think I was introduced to the birth order book when it came out. It was a long time ago, and I wasn't at that point. I was a youth pastor in a church and didn't have by any means, kids, but your birth order book helped us greatly. In fact, I would get frustrated because my wife would have your birth order book by the bedstand and none of my books. So that's how I felt. Kevin, I'm just letting you know.
I'm still trying to get my wife to read one of the 72 Kevin Leman books.
Tell us a little bit about birth order. Just help us understand that. Help us understand it from a educational context.
Well, how about the kid who does an assignment or doesn't hand in an assignment or tears up something he just did in the classroom? He's in all probability a budding perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we want to teach is, we want to pursue excellence in life, not perfection. Again, it gives you a way of communicating with the parents, because maybe the parents are too demanding. Maybe the parent is a perfectionist. And as I've said in a couple of the books, perfectionism is slow suicide. We really want kids to be able to understand that we all fall short. I mean, that comes right out of the book of Romans. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. We're all imperfect and flawed. In fact, just to get people's attention, I'll say flaunt your imperfection. Well, that's an unnatural thing to do. And women, we'll pick on women for a second. They spend billions of dollars a year covering up their imperfections, But when you think of the people that you loved and the people that had your back growing up and people you're attracted to today, they're people that are what? Easy to talk to. They welcome you. They're not critical.
Yeah.
And it's so that spirit that really gets back to why we say, hey, this book is all about relationships. Learn them well, because it really is the fundamental building block to success in life, whether you're a rocket science or a first grade teacher.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Kristin, in terms back to the birth order thing too, and that's so good. Back to the birth order. What do you tell teachers when you're doing your training, when you're training teachers with what you do? How do they find, they just, I guess, find out where they're at on the birth order? What are some of the key things of a firstborn compared to a middle child compared to the lastborn? I realize there's sometimes people in between there too.
Yeah. So, spending the number of years I have in a classroom, it's pretty easy. If you walk by lockers, for example, and a middle schooler opens their locker, I can probably nail down their birth order by, is everything lined up neat and orderly? Everything's in place. There's organizational shelves, as opposed to the kid next door that opens up their locker, everything falls out. Their backpack looks the same, their desk, their pencil box, all these things we use in school.
So true.
There are kids that, I've taught that have to line up all their crayons and keep all their crayons lined up before they're able to pick one out. And so all of those, even without having to, have a degree in psychology and figure out birth order, those are all clues of how that little person thinks. And whether they're a firstborn, a middle, or a baby, it gives you a clue into how they function, how they're going to work, what happens when they make a mistake, what happens when they forget their homework, and then how to come around them to help offset. So you might set a baby of the family next to a firstborn in your classroom, just to help balance some of that, even organization and being on task.
Yeah, no, that's a great illustration. That's a great idea. You guys had a phrase in the book that I circled. You write about viewing life from behind their eyes.
Right.
Unpack that.
And that's important for all of us. I mean, don't firstborn children and only born children buy cars, for example, as adults differently than us babies? That firstborn, they're going to read Car and Driver magazine. They're going to read Consumer's Report. They love the specification page. Babies like me, I mean, I could make a fool of myself telling you things I've done spur of the moment without thinking it through. And, I'd be on a car lot and go, Shazam! Do you have a teal green one with gold trim? I'll take it. 60 payments later, I'm wondering why I bought that stupid car. So here's the point. As a teacher, you have to get yourself behind that child's eyes, because some kids see themselves as only counting in life when they get attention. So here's that kid. You hear that little knock? That's
Yeah.
that pencil. And you say,
Yeah.
Thomas, knock it off. And he'll stop for a minute. 30 seconds later, he's like a little woodpecker. He's back. Well,
Right.
that kid's saying, I only count in life when I get attention. Then you got the powerful kid. You ask him to have a seat, and he gives you the stare look, the tough guy look, folds his arms with a little huff, lets you know he's a tough guy, and then he sits down. Well, what's he saying?
Mm.
He says, I only count in life when I dominate, when I control, when I win.
Mm.
And then you
Right.
got the kid who's really been brought up in a really rough environment and life has hurt him. And he's one that you find as a teacher, he's always trying to hurt other people one way or another.
Mhm.
Well, his
Right.
lifestyle is I only count in life when I hurt other people because life's been unfair to me.
Yeah.
So we're not asking people to be a shrink, but we're asking him to tap into some common sense things using birth order, because as a teacher, as an adult, you have to adjust your birth order, your perception
Right.
to be able to effectively deal with these kids who all see life differently than you do.
Yeah. Now, Kristin, as a teacher, you got, let's pretend you have 25, 35 kids in a class, and then there's another class, you have middle school, then you get the next class. You guys are talking a lot about getting to know these kids. That's a tough job as a teacher. What can a teacher do to get to know? I mean, obviously they can look and go, okay, fill it out at the beginning. I'm the firstborn, I'm the lastborn. But how do they get to know these kids on an individual basis, to know what your dad is talking about?
Yeah.
That they've had a tough life, or they've had, certain issues that surely relate. Again, some teachers have 100 plus students.
Right. And especially when we're looking at teachers that teach middle school or high school,
Yeah.
each of those teachers can take ownership over their homeroom class.
Yeah.
They often just have a homeroom, which is home base. So yeah, they might be seeing 100 kids a day, but we're really asking that they devote their attention to building those relationships with
Yeah.
those kids in their homeroom. Something simple that we talk about in the book is, do you meet each of your kids at the door?
Yeah.
A simple
I
greeting.
love that concept.
Yeah, you can check in really fast, whether they're kindergartners or high schoolers, and know their temperature. Are they off today? Are they ready to
Yeah.
come in to learn? Is something wrong? And then you have to take those moments in the classroom to pull up a chair, sit alongside, give up a lunch here or there, and just say, you know what? Invite a friend or two. I notice something's going on. Can we talk? Can we just have lunch? Spread out a towel on the floor, a picnic, blanket, and just talk to these kids and be available to them. They need someone that's going to be a champion for them and that's going to listen. And especially in middle school and high school, a lot of times it's not mom and dad because they're not really comfortable talking with mom and dad. They need someone outside they can trust. So
Yeah, no, so I love that part when you said that in the book, greet them at the door. One of the teachers of the year years ago, Disney teachers of the year, they give out a Disney prize every year. And that teacher said, what I try to do with my fifth graders is affirm them every day, touch them in an appropriate way, of course, of touching, and then affirm, touch, and then ask them a question. And it doesn't have to be a personal question. I mean, it's super personal question. And this woman was teacher of the year because her kids were ending up graduating from high school and going on to college. And in this particular school, that was not the case. They took it back. They all were saying it's this woman who affirmed, asked questions and literally touched, gave them the just a lovely, touch on the arm, or, back in the day, I'm bald headed because my dad would give me noogies, and that was his way of saying, I love you. But, whatever, depending on the age of the kid, but that's so key. And I love that you said that. Let's talk about kids and behavior. What I'm hearing more and more in school systems is that, sometimes the behavior is out of control. Obviously you're, as a teacher, you're getting kids who are out of control at home, and now they're, coming in. What's the best way to prompt change of behavior?
Yeah, sometimes I would say the problem named is the problem solved. So ignoring the behavior never helps. You have to work alongside. And today, like you were talking about in, the work that your wife did, there's kids that have needs that sometimes go beyond what the classroom teacher is prepared to handle. And so being okay to ask for help if you need help, and putting a team together to help kids be successful in really getting to the root of the problem. And sometimes that takes time because you have to build trust for kids to be able to say what's really going on. For example, if they're not eating at home and you expect them to come to school and to learn, they're not ready to learn because all they can think about is how hungry they are.
Sure.
And so it's going to take time, though, for that kiddo to say, you know what? We don't have enough money at home for breakfast, or I don't have a lunch today, and I didn't eat dinner last night because things are tough. And, those things are really happening in our schools. And usually the teachers, the first place where that's going to come out,
Sure.
and it's our responsibility to help. So school is so much more than just educating our kids. Yes, that's always going to be first and foremost. But like I said, you're dealing with people's lives. And so therefore it can be a little more complicated at times, but we're there to walk alongside and get kids the help they need.
So let me
that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Kevin.
There's three basic styles of leadership. There's the authoritarian, which is basically my way or the highway. A lot of us grew up with parents who were very authoritarian.
Sure.
I did for sure. And there's also the permissive, who wants to be the child's best friend, the student's best friend. And I like to point out to teachers that either extreme will produce rebellion in the heart of that kid. It's interesting. The laissez-faire or the my way or the highway approach, they both plant the seeds of rebellion. There is a wonderful sweet spot between those called the authoritative parent, the authoritative teacher. I always remind teachers you get one chance to make a first impression. And so that first day of school, especially, the training starts. And it goes like this. Hey, teacher, you don't say a word until everybody in the room is what? Quiet. And I learned that when I was a keynote speaker at Women of Faith in Las Vegas with 10,000 women. And you get the big introduction. There's three big screens. And okay, here he is, that little fat psychologist from Tucson, Arizona, Leman. And they applaud and they quiet down some, but these are women. And I got news for you. They're still talking. And what I've learned to do, as uncomfortable as it is with a spotlight in your face, you just stand there like the village idiot and wait till everyone's quiet, and then you begin to speak. But there is something about a teacher's presence. And I know as a guy who used to torment teachers, if a teacher was authoritative and their yes was yes and their no was no, and guess where that comes from? God's holy word. I didn't mess with those teachers. The teachers that I really gave a hard time to were the over-authoritarian ones. I say, okay, you're on. But for the permissives, I mean, one of them I ran. I literally, she left school and never came back. I tried to find her as an adult to apologize to her. But I'm just saying, the presence you have as a teacher and how you approach the kids respectfully with high expectations sets the tone for a pretty good year in the classroom.
Yeah. It's interesting how, as you all are talking, a lot of this relates to parenting too. A teacher is not their parent. They don't replace the parent. And sometimes, but Kristin used the word trust earlier, and sometimes they trust the teacher more than they trust the parent, for reasons. But what I hear you saying is that works in teaching. It also works in parenting.
But when I speak to CEO groups, you mentioned making children mine without losing yours, have a new kid by Friday. A lot of the concepts that I try to teach CEOs, and they seem to love, come right out of those books.
Yes. That makes sense.
Things like, how about B doesn't start till A gets completed? You can use that in the classroom. You can use it with your 17-year-old teenager who was going to clean the garage at least 4 months ago. It's still not cleaned. So I tell parents, hey, you got 4 aces in your back pocket. I call it parental poker. But the teacher has 4 aces in her back pocket too.
Yeah.
She has power and she has authority. And so the teacher, we call it the authority cookie. When you send that kid to the principal's office, well, that's one way of handling it, but it's a lot healthier to handle it in the classroom. Like Chrissy said, sit down, talk, get behind the kid's eyes, figure what's going on, and then you work it through. When you do, you establish your authority in the classroom, just like a parent has to establish their authority in the home.
So good. So good. And, every teacher needs to hear that kind of stuff that you're talking about. Now, we don't have much time left, but if a teacher reads your book, be a great teacher by Friday. What do you want them to remember most from your advice?
Yeah. Well, you know what? And it's something we haven't talked about today, but it's that teachers leave a legacy.
Yes.
And they're leaving an imprint on each kid that they have the opportunity to touch, and it's either going to be positive or negative. And so our encouragement to teachers is you be that person that years later they talk about and they remember with such fondness. And I bet if you and I reflected on the teachers that we've had, we're not reflecting on a great lesson or a wonderful worksheet
No.
or the best homework project we ever had.
No.
We reflect on how they made us feel and the closeness that somehow they were able to knit together within that classroom. There was something unique that's based in relationships that we remember. And so our encouragement is to read this book, get the skills that you need, sharpen up your tools, because you are going to leave a legacy. And that's a great way for us to impact this world that we live in.
Yeah. And you're right. And what's interesting is I read your book, and then I thought it was on a plane coming back from Guatemala where I was speaking, and I went on the back and I tried to remember most of my elementary school teachers, because, once you get to a certain deal, you remember a teacher in middle school, you remember a teacher in high school, but you don't remember them all. And it's interesting because I can't really remember how they taught. I remember how I felt with them, and I wrote down most of their names. I'm kind of bugged that I can't remember my fourth grade teacher, but it's going to come. I'm going to have to call somebody who I went to school with and ask, but because I liked her, but I just can't remember her name. But isn't that interesting that, here I am, an old guy, but I went back and I could name the teacher because of the legacy that they had in my life. And I can't always name what that legacy was, but it was how they made me feel, how they made me think about myself, how they made me look at something differently. So again, it's a great book. Thank you for writing it, the both of you. Thank you for modeling this. Kevin, thank you for your years and years of influence and impact, even in my life. You said a couple of things. And I thought, oh, wait, I thought I wrote that. I go, oh, no, I probably stole that from Kevin. So thank you for letting me, steal some of your content. And I think I thought it was mine.
We're all
anyway,
thieves.
So good.
We're all thieves.
Anyway, so great to be with you. And again, thanks for who you are and what you're doing. And I hope you enjoy some time together. I know you're out up there in New York together as family. And I just hope you have a great family time. So thanks again for coming and being on the podcast. Hey, and being a part of our first Teacher Appreciation Week. So great to be with you. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure. So time flies, but there's still some things I want to talk to you about. And before we leave, let me just say this to you who are teachers out there. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for investing in kids and families. You are making the world a better place. And I know we don't say that enough. And parents, let's make Teacher Appreciation Week happen often. A teacher is one of the most important influences in your child's life. I mean, the amount of time they spend with your kids is incredible. And as you know, it's not easy. And it seems in the teaching world, it's getting kind of more difficult and complicated. At least that's from my viewpoint. So this week, let someone you know who is a teacher know how deeply grateful you are for their life calling. And by the way, it's not a job, it's a calling. Okay. I learned that from their book. When I see how far reaching this podcast is, by the way, around this world, I am humbled and I am honored. Special shout out to our listeners this week in Guatemala City. I was just there this last week. And many of you mentioned to me that you actually listened to this podcast. And I am so grateful. It's even in English. And I don't know how some of you do it because, I guess you know enough English to get by. It was just, I was just there, but also I left with my heart kind of with many of you. Also in Jakarta, Indonesia. So many of you are writing me from Jakarta and saying, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate, what's going on in this podcast. So we're only a year out, but we're so excited that you're a part of it. And again, I appreciate all of your affirming notes as well. So thank you. And as always, if we can help you, don't hesitate to reach out at HomeWord.com. Our values are strong marriages, confident parents, empowered kids, and healthy leaders. Hey, until next time, I'm Jim Burns.